Lights up bright, dope, Campbell Stadium is alive. Seminoles rise and fight to survive. Helmet gleam under that blazing sun. Florida State where champions run. Seminole sideline 365. Feel the roar, we're coming alive. Garnet and gold in the battle we thrive. This is our house where legends arrive. Turf torn up under Seminole feet. The war chant pounds to the heart's own beat. Chop through the noise like a storm in the sky. 2025, we reach for the high. Seminole sideline 365.
Welcome back to Seminole Sideline 365. It is KB. I'm with the old man, and I don't know what the hell is on the screen right now.
That is what I've been doing, KB. Did some fishing today. One of my old best friends behind me there, you can't see him. In fact, the guy who took the picture, we said, hey, you didn't even get Chris in the picture. And went out fishing on some of the estuaries in Florida, down in Citrus County, Florida, actually, which is in Central Florida. Look at that bad boy. Can you see him? You can't see him. I got my camouflage gear on. Got everything, man. Look at that. Having a good old time. You know, hitting those little things. Actually, that's a ladyfish. You ever heard of a ladyfish?
No.
Probably not. There were a lot of mullet jumping in these little ponds and estuaries coming in from the Gulf of America. And I've been learning how to catch mullet because they don't bite on like shrimp and other things. You have to use like bread balls and stuff. So that's my next big target when I go out fishing. Fishing's a great sport, and it's a lot of fun.
Super fascinating. Well, tonight we're going to be talking through.
We're going to be fishing for new coaches. That's what we're going to be fishing for.
Yeah, so we're going to be focusing on just who are some initial names. Obviously, none of us on this side believe Mike Norvell will be here at the end of November, December.
There's no belief. He's gone.
So
He's gone.
It's really about talking about who should be on the board, who is on the board, and who are the names maybe they're talking to already behind the scenes. Because I think by all statements, most believe Norvell won't be here. So let's start exploring who may be out there, who may be.
Let's salute first one in the queue. He was the GOAT, the greatest of all time. Even despite teaching some boxing, going to boxing class with his son, he got in first. He was in like 20 minutes early. So hats off to the GOAT, number one in the queue. But we love everybody, so let's go.
Absolutely. So yeah, so we're jumping into that, giving some names that we're hearing, what we're seeing, and a lot of these names that we're discussing could be also names that Florida's looking at. I think there'll be a lot of crossover with those names, and some of these names you may disagree with, you may agree with. Throw out some names that you guys think we should be looking at, and this will be an ongoing segment, obviously, as dynamics change, as people get hired, as people get fired, and as rumors circulate. So let us know in the chat who you're hearing, who you're feeling, and we can dive into those as well. Yeah, we'll keep it focused, and we'll get you in and out in a short amount of time. But the first one I want to bring up, because it keeps getting out there, and it continues to grow. But the name that seems to be growing legs more and more and more is Jimbo Fisher. And the reason I say that is that the articles are now coming out, and I think he's starting to leak a lot of this, is that he's ready to come back, and that he's kind of building a staff for himself, and he's watching tape, and he's putting his feelers out there, that he's ready to coach again. He's no longer satisfied with just being an analyst and doing this thing on the ACC network.
And a multi-millionaire.
Yeah, and he did an interview in Tallahassee where he said, I never got into coaching for money. And he said, well, I'm not going to get out of it because I got money.
And so he lives in Tallahassee. He has a home in Tallahassee.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
Yeah. So he's made that statement that, yeah, he's not just going to go away because he got the $75+ million from Texas A&M and his buyout, and he's ready to get out there. So he's publicly made that statement, and that kind of backs up the rumors that have been out there on social media next that, this is a guy that many people said they want back now, and it's kind of come full circle now that, this is a guy that's available. This is a guy that may be willing to take potentially a discount, per se, to come to Florida State to reunite. Because if you remember when things broke up, I think some of the reasons there was a breakup is that, Stan Wilcox, the former AD, wasn't willing to give some investments into facilities and give investments into some of the things that Jimbo Fisher was looking for. And now these things have come to fruition. We just opened the new football-only facility, and you've probably seen the leaks of those photos and how beautiful that place looks now. And you see the large investment in NIL that Florida State is making and has made as a top 15 program in NIL, and how much they spend there, and the new renovations to Doak Campbell Stadium. So all the things that Jimbo Fisher wanted, that he thought would make them a successful program, continue to make them a successful program, he didn't get, but they're now in place. Thanks in large part to Mike Alford and the boosters and the programs around that. So things do, I see where the signals do make sense. Now where I think and financially, I think they could make a lot of sense too, like I said, because Jimbo doesn't need the money, and he's putting that signal out there that he doesn't necessarily want the money. Obviously he's going to want money, but he's not in it just for the money. Now where the signals don't make sense for Jimbo Fisher is that this is a guy that went to Texas A&M, obviously. It didn't do well there. We don't know how well.
But why did he go? I think you've already touched on that, KB, very well. You did very well. He left, and he says this in some interviews with, I think it was Big James Coleman when he was interviewing him, that he said, because I couldn't get the program facility-wise and other resources and tools that would be needed to compete, he went to Texas A&M, because Texas A&M, without a doubt, has much more money in the bank and bigger alumni than Florida State does. That is a fact. That is not something I'm making up. And he decided that would give him the better opportunities to win more consistently and to win not only SEC but national championship. It didn't work out. That's okay, because it's not always the coaches and not always the players. It's a combination of both. Any coach who's won a lot acknowledges you got to have the players as well. And to just remark, I don't know if you saw this. You know who that is? That's Jimbo Fisher. This is 2010. That's my shirt. I was there at these games when Jimbo Fisher took over from Bobby Bowden, and it was take Doak back. Can you believe we are back to that again? We are back. What's 15 years now? We've got to take Doak back again. The question is, could it be Jimbo Fisher? I think that, I think Jimbo does love ball. There's no doubt. The question is, has the game left him behind because we're in new eras and stuff now? I don't think it has, but I'm not sure the remarriage of FSU and Jimbo Fisher is going to happen. I think the odds of that is that Jimbo lands somewhere else. But as you said, KB, his message about, I don't need the money. He had a huge buyout at Texas A&M. And I'm talking, I think it was in the 50 plus millions of dollars.
$75+ million buyout.
75 million. I think it was the number one in history of buyouts. So yeah, I think, do you think that would be a good remarriage?
I just don't know if he's been able to change his philosophy to the ways of NIL. And that's what I saw at, NIL really started heavy around COVID 2020, 2021. And that's really where things started to slide at Texas A&M. 2022, he went 5-7. 2023, 6-4.
Didn't he have
Like,
NIL though? He had NIL. Did he have NIL?
this was that's that like I'm saying,
Right.
NIL wasn't really formalized and heavy until
Wow.
after 2021. He had top recruiting classes, high school recruiting classes, but that didn't really lead to elite results. And so that's where I failed to see is that and when NIL was heavy in 2022, 2023, really, the results still didn't come. And he was still getting pretty good classes, but he just wasn't getting results. And so I that's where I fail to see why so many people think that he's just going to come into Florida State and start getting
some people
results.
say, yeah, some people say, KB, that he is a long line of offensive coordinators, okay, OCs, that would not relinquish the play calling. You know, remember he had those big books and sheets and so on. He did not relinquish it, even at Texas A&M. I don't think Billy Napier, a same guy, would not give up play calling. Mike Norvell, they had to rip the playbook out of his hand, basically offensive coordinator. And there's some other guys that didn't want to give that up. The question would be is if he came back to Florida State, would he try to call plays again, or would he bring in a up and coming offensive coordinator to handle those type duties? I think we may be blowing in the wind here a little bit. I think they could get Jimbo Fisher for a discount. Okay. Unless there's something out there we don't know, but probably for a discount. But let's look at it now. He was 20 games over, I believe, 500, even at Texas A&M. His overall record as a head coach in college ball is pretty damn good overall. And I think a lot of people will be willing to take him on. Let me make this remark, get your comment on this. No matter who we hire, no matter who the hire is, the question is, it has to be almost a coach that we're looking to set us up to get into the SEC or the Big Ten, because I think the big TV contract comes up in 2028, if I heard that right. And so we have to be set up for that. Right now, we're not.
Set us up. What does that mean, set us up?
I mean, set us up to make sure they still want us. If we're still floundering around here in the mud and being a dumpster
you see a football
fire,
coach that wins. I don't care what conference you want to win. I don't care who we're going. Just win. Just win. That's all you care. So I don't care about setting us up. You win.
No, you're missing the point I'm trying to make.
I'm not missing your point.
Is we've got to make sure the program is on an upward trend to get our brand back, so we're not floundering for the next 3 or 4 years. The brand is still there,
but regardless, you want a guy that comes in that can stabilize the program, regardless of what conference you're going to. Regardless if you stay in the ACC, you want a guy that can stabilize the program and win games. I don't give a shit if we're in the ACC for the next 50 years. I don't want to be winning 3 games a year. I could give a shit.
Well,
I want to win. I want to win 8 to 9 games plus every single year competing for the ACC title. We need a guy that can come in and start winning games and focus on that. I think
Jimbo Fisher could do that. Jimbo Fisher was I would say, an exceptional recruiter. Whether or not he was a winner at Texas A&M, he was an exceptional recruiter. Okay, and I think he has the passion, he has the desire, and the motivation to do it again. I'm not saying he's coming here. I doubt that. I'd be shocked if they remarried with Jimbo Fisher.
I'd say I wouldn't be shocked at this point, because I think if they want a good hire, that's going to be one of the most available good hires that they can make while saving money, maybe hiring a great staff around him, and that's where they could save money. And we've seen these type of reunions. We just saw Scott Frost go back to UCF.
That's true. After failing at Nebraska,
but now he's failing at UCF again. So, a lot of these reunions don't work out for various reasons. And a
lot of remarriages don't work out in real life as well.
Yeah. And so I just, so that's where I don't want to say it won't or it will. But it always doesn't come back around like it is.
But
And there's been so many changing dynamics since he's come here in the landscape of college football and how you recruit kids. It's not all about just going in home and pitching them now. Now there's so much financial decisions around things and contracts and agents and stuff like that. It's a lot has changed even from when he was at Texas A&M the final years there, right? Since 2000, since those couple of years ago, the landscape's drastically changed. I feel like every single year it's changing. So in just the 2 or 3 years since he left,
right,
it's really changed. But I don't think it would be the worst call. I don't think him coming back, especially if you're getting a discount and you can surround him with the right people. I think that's huge. If that's the way they approach it, and he's willing to do that and say, yeah, let's do this, or let's take 20 million in savings and put that into NIL to infuse and target the right people, the right kids, and really accelerate our rebuild even more. That's where it makes sense.
That's right. That you just hit on it. You just hit on it, KB. This is purely financial driven. And here's the problem. I wrote a note down to myself here. I think some of they've already made up their mind on Norvell. We don't even have to talk about that. He is not going to be coaching here too much in the distant future. Could be next week. It could be the end of the season. Like Alford has already said, he said we'll reevaluate at the end of the season. There is a strategy that the big financial boosters and Alford have put together. And some of it, let's be frank, there may not be enough money yet for the buyout and or to hire someone else at the same time. We spent a lot of money in the court case. We've spent a lot of money in NIL, and now facing these bills, there may have to be a way to work all these schemes out with different financial things. I guess there's some stuff financially you might be aware of. I'm not, but I don't even understand it. You can go to equity funds and take loans, or what the hell? I don't know. But there's a lot of financial mechanisms going on at Florida State, and they may need that time. But I like what you said. If you can get a proven guy, and Jimbo Fisher is a proven coach. Now, you can say, wow, what did he win? Well, he won a national championship. He won, 3 ACC titles during his time at FSU. He had a down period, but he still was 20 games, I believe. I think it was when I looked at 20 games over 500 at Texas A&M. This guy can win games, all right? So if you get him at a discount, if you get him, like you said, and you can shave off some millions for players, which if you don't have the players, I don't give a shit what your coach is. You don't think Nick Saban would want to make sure he had plenty of money if he came to any school these days? Oh, you're damn right. He got out of ball because of NIL. Nick Saban is not going anywhere from TV. He's done with that. Yeah. But the money we could save to pay off the old staff, bring in and pay the new staff, and maybe have some money to add to the NIL, that's an important factor no matter who you hire. But I'm kind of curious if it's going to be a proven head coach with a lengthy record or an up-and-coming guy that really you're taking a risk on. Any way you cut it, there's risk. The question is, where is the greater risk with other coaches that may be looked at?
Yeah, I really do think a lot of this decision making too is going to come down to the financials. Tomahawk Nation, if you guys haven't read it, has a really good breakdown of the financial of Florida State and the decisions they've made in renovations and outstanding loans and the money they put up and how liquid they are on different things and it's not great. And a lot of that is capital renovations and facilities and the renovations and financing of 2 major construction projects and all these things, and then you put on top of that buying out contracts last year for the old coaches, current contracts, buying out your assistants at old schools,
Christ,
Tony
you're
White
still
and those
paying
guys.
Willie Taggart.
No, he's
You're
done.
still
He's
paying
done.
him?
No, you're not. You're not. Yeah,
Oh, you're not
this was up
paying
in
him anymore?
2024.
Okay.
But
Like
there's a
last
lot
year.
of capital intensive things going on. A lot of money was moving a lot of different places, and that's not even including a lot of money is going to a lot of different places, and you're not seeing a lot of return for it. And so, it's piling up, and so, and especially where you are with the ACC and the return there, which isn't a ton, you're in a very financially unstable position, it seems like. So I think a lot of this is going to have to go, and it's one of the reasons why, obviously Mike Norvell's still here, but I think you're going to have to look at, they're going to have to look at what is the most financially responsible decision we can make on hiring a new coach. I think Alford signed off on a lot of risky decisions. Did Doak Campbell Stadium really need to be renovated? Did it need to be downsized seating and to be, it was a risk of downsizing seating and making it more luxurious to bring more high profile people in. But when you're only at 3 wins and 4 losses and potentially going to lose a lot more, people aren't going to show up and pay those high prices when tickets are $5 this weekend.
$5 this weekend.
That's a loss, and that's not generating revenue. That's losing you more revenue. That's a risk. That's a losing gamble right now.
And it's a loss to the economy of Tallahassee.
And that's on Mike Alford.
It impacts.
And so these are things that are backfiring right now. And these are a lot of gambles. And once again, these are things that do fall on Mike Alford and decisions he's gambled on. So, a lot of these things are going to be going into the decision making. I think they will play into the next name, James Franklin. He's available. Is he willing to, based on his being fired and are you able to leverage him into rebuilding his career and rebuilding his image at Florida State into in a position being in Florida and a heavily, more athletes available to him versus being up in Pennsylvania and having to fight in the Northeast for recruits? Are you able to potentially go after him and kind of like a younger version of Jimbo Fisher, a guy that has struggled in big games but could bring program stability? Because I think what we need to, as fans, need to realize is that we don't need to go to the ACC or need to go to the national championship in the next 2 years. We need to get back to 8 wins, 9 wins yearly.
We need to get back to stability.
Competitive football. Competitive football year after year and being in the recruiting battles we need. It's 8 to 9 wins.
When you say competitive football, say competitive in winning, because we've been competitive this season. We've been competitive this season. Okay, we lost to Virginia in double overtime. We lost to Miami by 6. We lost to Pittsburgh by 3. We lost to Stanford by 7, 2 inches away from the goal line.
Yeah,
that's competitive. But I said this before. You can be highly competitive, but lose every game. To describe this factually, we beat Alabama, and then we 4 losses, less than 7 points each. Less than 7 points each. So that is a description of being very competitive. Okay, and why we're on this. There's all these people, okay, all these people saying, oh, we quit, the team has quit, he's lost the locker room. I don't really believe that, and I'll tell you for why I don't believe that. First of all, they're still competing. You could say, well, Stanford, you competed. I'm not saying we're a great team. We're a bad team. We are a bad team. But I don't believe the athletes, the players on this team have quit. I don't believe that. I don't believe athletes at any age, they're playing because they want to compete. Now, people say, well, they already got their money. They're going to stop playing. I would hope that the coaches would single them out and not play them or do something with them. But most athletes are going to want to compete. I don't care what you're doing. rec sports, professional sports, college sport, whatever. I just don't see. I think it's an easy thing to say, but there's no sign here. There's no sign here in these games that they stopped playing. It doesn't say that. It says you got close, you lost because you made mistakes. And that brings us to the quality of players. Maybe these guys aren't going to get any better. That's why we have guys at Division III. That's why we have guys in small colleges. That's why we have guys, at other places that they can't play. Okay, and it doesn't take many mistakes. You don't get the best of 7. Here you get the best of 1 game on any given Saturday, and the equity has been spread out, so the margin for error is smaller. I'm not saying this is a good football team. In fact, I'm saying it's a bad football team, but I don't believe they have quit, because if a coach sees that, he should immediately not play that kid anymore.
Yeah.
You agree? Disagree?
I don't care either way at this point. I don't. They're not.
We don't
they're not
care.
playing. They're not playing it to their potential. I do believe some players are quitting.
Okay, well then, wouldn't coaches? If you're a coach, you've coached some kids. I've coached some kids. When I see if I think a kid is undisciplined or he can't,
We
or
saw
he's not
it. What are you
playing,
talking about? We saw
I
Edwin
would-
Joseph blow Mike Norvell off on the sideline, and he played the
That
rest of the
was
game. What are
addressed.
you talking about?
That was addressed today by I think it was today or yesterday by Tony White. And Tony White had an interesting answer. If people go look at that interview on YouTube, he didn't say the kid. He said the kid will learn from this. He shouldn't have done what he did, but he kind of hinted that how it was handled on the sideline was not really appropriate. I'm not going to say it was a swipe at Mike Norvell, but it kind of looked that way a little bit. That maybe we shouldn't have handled it right then and there. The kid had jumped off sides, which was a huge screw up early in the game, and then 2 or 3 plays later, he gave up a touchdown pass. Yeah, the kid was down. I don't think the kid was the thing. Anytime that happens to an athlete, nobody wants to screw up. And I think it plays into what Mike Norvell is saying now in the press conference I listened to today. He keeps saying, and he said this for the last 2 or 3 losses, oh, they're playing tight. I just want them to run downhill and really take on. As you pile up losses and the tension grows, people do start to tighten up, and they don't want to make mistakes. They become hesitant. And I think that's part of what's going on here. Now, is that Mike Norvell's fault? I don't know if it is, but he's got to take accountability for it, just like the rest of the coaches. They always say it's on me. Well, it's on you. You're going to be held accountable for it. But players do have an impact. Now, Edwin Joseph went in the second half. Tony Elliott kind of jumped to his defense, went in and had a pretty good game the rest of the way and made some big plays, per Tony White. That's what he said. So it's some very interesting dynamics, but it's this. Yeah, people are tight all over the organization.
Yeah. So yeah, back to coaches and who may be available. Like I said, I think a lot of it, key guys will come down to financials and what they're able to afford. James Franklin being the other guy, along with Jimbo. I think James Franklin isn't a home run hire, but I think he's a stabilizing factor. I mean, he's kept Penn State relevant. Penn State just last year won a couple of playoff games. I think many people forget that. Obviously, they weren't having a great time this year. Losses to UCLA. He's
been there like 12 years, right?
I don't know
10?
how long exactly, but
Okay.
He'd been there for a while. He was great at NFL development. He sent a lot of guys to the NFL.
True.
I mean, he wasn't an elite recruiter, but he was a great evaluator, and he was able to send a lot of players to the next level. Now, people will say, well, why wasn't he able to win the big ones? Why wasn't he able to win the national championship in 12 years?
It's hard.
I can't answer that. He did have a terrible record against Ohio State and Michigan. That is true. I think he was like 1-12 or something terrible. Yeah. I mean, most programs that would get you fired. If we were 1-12 against Miami, you would probably be fired before that. You complain about you can't go 1-4. You can't lose year after year. I mean,
Mike was 3-3 against Miami, given the figures I looked at, and he was 2-2 with one COVID year we didn't play. 2-2 against Florida.
Yeah. So I mean, James Franklin did struggle against the biggest rivals in the Big Ten. And that's the biggest thing against him, and that's probably one of the reasons, obviously, why he eventually got out. And with the Adidas money, they finally had the money for that buyout. So they decided to move in another direction. I mean, he was 16-36 against ranked opponents across his coaching career. So you're going to hold that against him, obviously. Can a coach get better? But I do believe probably Penn State is a tough place to recruit. Like you said, it's in the Northeast. You're recruiting against Ohio State, Michigan directly up there. It's not like there's a plethora of great talent, elite high school talent in Pennsylvania and up there in New York and New Jersey. I mean, you have to go into Virginia and then go into Ohio and go into the Buckeyes' home territory and Michigan. It's tough. It's tough for a program like that. But that's why he did evaluate very well. He did develop very well and got guys to the next level. So if you brought him to the state of Florida, could he do it? Potentially. Now, does he have ties there? Not necessarily. That's the downside. But
I think they've gotten some specialty guys out of Florida before, skilled guys.
Could you, once again, if he's taking a discount, could you once again get the right staff around him or infuse the NIL budget to once again go after a big time quarterback for whether high school or in the portal? That's where I think if you get the right budget or the right guy that's available in the market as a head coach and surround him either with money or assistance or both, a lot of these programs, what you're missing is elite quarterback play. We haven't had elite quarterback play since Jameis Winston in this program. Or Jordan Travis, you could say, is up there, and I would say he's probably up there, not Jameis Winston level. But that's the stabilizing factor for a lot of these teams is really an average to average plus line plus elite quarterback play. And if you have elite quarterback play, it gives you the highest ceiling of all time. It gives you the ability to do a lot of things. That you can overcome a bad defense, and you can put a lot of points on the board. And really, that's what usually makes a good coach have a couple of great seasons. You look at Ed Orgeron at LSU. He had Joe Burrow, got to a national championship, won. You look at guys like Jimbo Fisher had Jameis Winston, won the national championship. But when Jimbo Fisher had he was great at recruiting good quarterbacks. And when things struggled is when guys got injured and he had to go to the third string quarterback. And, we know all the situations with the quarterbacks he recruited. One guy got dismissed, and it was a story towards the end there where he couldn't get his quarterbacks in and start.
But he could bring in good quarterbacks.
He was great at and that was a linchpin of his offense, is having elite quarterback or great quarterback play and having pieces around it. And that drove the offense. And so I think that's what Florida State needs to get back to, is we got to get back to elite quarterback play or great quarterback play, and then surrounding with the right offensive line and weapons. And maybe, once again, you get a discount on James Franklin and then invest like Michigan did. Michigan gave Bryce Underwood $4 or $5 million, and he's a freshman, and he's doing pretty good. That's kind of what it takes at this level, again, to accelerate your getting back to a winning program style. So I wouldn't be disappointed with James Franklin. I think he could be a stabilizing force. So I'd be happy with Jimbo or James Franklin. Who's your, you can give your thoughts on him.
I think I have some different thought. And it's so hard, to know the names are rattling around like bingo balls, and the thing, there's names everywhere. Now, the thing on Franklin I think is interesting, though. A lot of these coaches have clauses in their contracts, even with buyouts, that says if you take employment as a head coach, as a coach again, then we get a discount. There's this, if you take I'm just saying that if you take another head coaching job next year after you just left, then we get a discount on the buyout. Okay. That could be something that Franklin can leverage. Franklin could say, well, I'm getting, I don't know, let's just pick a number, 50 mil, 40 mil. And I'm not just going to go into any situation, because I'm going to have to give up half of that if I take your job. So, you may have to compensate me. So there's a lot of, like I say, these different financial issues, as you've said, surrounding which we have no clue. Nobody out there has a clue what's going on with those things. There's no great sources out there that I've seen across media that are getting stories on this. Okay, I don't care if they're paid threads and hot boards and all this other stuff. Okay, I mean, one of the hottest guys out there seems to be Lane Kiffin, but also he seems to have a pretty good situation at Ole Miss. And I want to put up a guy who's really big in all of this as we talk about some of the coaches, okay? And this is the guy right here. That's Jimmy Sexton. Jimmy Sexton not only handles Mike Norvell, he also handles Jimbo Fisher. He also handles, I believe, Lane Kiffin. He handles a lot of these guys right now. So he's trending down on Norvell, but he's got a huge buyout. He's trending up on Lane Kiffin, and he's floating out there Jimbo Fisher. It's like a used car lot, but he's dealing with a lot of money. I can't imagine how his phone is ringing off the hook as he tries to make some of these deals. The question is, what does Florida State and the big boosters really want to do? Are they looking for a big hitter that has a proven record, or are they willing to go after like a very high profile OC or DC? Generally, you go for the OC, or some head coaches that are out there now that are not household names. How about Rhett Lashley of SMU? All right. I don't think, for me, I think he's kind of like a Mike Norvell again. He's really hasn't had enough proof out there on his resume to say, I'm a sure bet. Well, there's no sure bets. I don't care who the hell you bring in. You could bring in Lane Kiffin. It's not a sure bet. Lincoln Riley. It's not a sure bet. Could you bring in Rhett Lashley from SMU, who's done pretty good there for a program? Now, SMU has a lot of money. I don't know what their payroll is, but look at that Texas Tech. They were throwing money everywhere to people. How about a USF guy, Alex Golish? He's a hot name right now because what he's done in the state of Florida. But what has he really done? What has he really done? All right. He beat a terrible Florida team. He got down and got his brains beat in by Miami. UVA, Tony Elliott. But again, not a steep resume there. He's having a great year. Don't get me wrong. He could end up winning the ACC championship. Brent Key at Georgia Tech. What are they ranked now? Number 8 or 10? Mm-hmm. Something like that. That guy looks like a coach, man. Reminds me of he's taken little or no resources and turned it into big money. Tony Elliott, same thing, little or no resources, and really has Georgia Tech and UVA, great academic schools, and they've done well there. I don't think Tony Elliott will be at UVA next year unless they really give him some big money to keep him long range. Golish, I think, will step out. He'll take another job. Rhett Lashley, I don't know. He seems to have a pretty good deal at SMU, but they're all available if you bring the right package. And I agree with you on Franklin and Jimbo. And there are a cast of characters out there. There's going to be a huge domino effect. When one guy goes, it's going to be massive dominoes. You know how I used to set them up and they fall over? Is going to be a huge amount of movement in the Power Four conferences this year. Now, any other names you got on your list right now?
Yeah, there's a couple other names I want to mention that people may agree or disagree with that I've seen mentioned out there that aren't going to be necessarily sexy names, but one is Manny Diaz, guy at Duke. He's a Florida State guy.
He's doing a great job.
And he's a Florida State guy. Obviously, he coached at Miami.
Yeah. Had a hard time there.
He was a GA at Florida State to start his career.
DC guy.
He's coached in the ACC. Defensive minded. He's consistently wherever he goes, he builds up the defense. Hires decent staffs. And he's done well already at Duke and kind of starting to once again make them competitive as a program. They're 3-4 or 4-3 this year, 3-1 in the ACC. They were 9-4 in his first year.
It's a tough environment to coach in.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like he's getting a ton of NIL support or we know what
basketball
football is at
school.
Duke. But what they do well, we know what he does well, and so once again, it wouldn't necessarily be a sexy pick.
High risk.
It would be a program stabilizing pick, in my opinion. I think it's a guy that you could get relatively affordable. He's making around $4 million right now at Duke. I think you'd get him probably for that, $6 to $8 million range, something around that. Making him, something adjustable to there. And I think he's a guy that could get you to an 8 to 9 win program in the next, 2 to 3 years. If he's winning 9 games at Duke, I don't see why you couldn't get 9 games at Florida State. Why he wouldn't be able to build that. I think he's a culture building head coach. And once again, I think Florida State for so long was built around its defense. It would be great to get back to that. And then once again, like I was saying on the other end, use some of that NIL money to find the right build a staff that can find the right quarterback, and then have a complementary team again. But I know building around being a defensive first team isn't always sexy. It isn't always the way of college football nowadays. It's always offense. But I think it would be an interesting selection and a guy that could be gettable and affordable for what may be available in the Florida State budget. Because I think getting a guy at a good price and then saying to him, if you sign for this, we're going to give you this much extra for NIL investment would be a huge way to strategically go forward. Because I think you're going to need it to accelerate the rebuild. The other guy worth mentioning, I think this one would be a lot tougher because his alma mater is his school, is Jeff Brom at Louisville. He's a program builder. And I think he's a program builder at the Power 4 level. He's not like a Mike Norvell who's out Memphis and stuff like that. We've seen him, and Jeff Brom has a long history of coaching multiple different levels. But the things he did at Purdue, and kind of bringing them back to relevancy. He's coached at non-Power 4 level, but what he did at Purdue, building them back, what he's done at Louisville, building them back and making them extremely competitive in the ACC. Once again, I wouldn't say he's an elite recruiter at Louisville, but he's a great evaluator and developer of talent. And now if you put him in Florida, it's closer to elite talent. Does that improve? Imagine, and he gets guys out of Florida, right? He's able to get guys out of Florida who are under the radar.
Yeah. Well, he's got a
put them in the right position.
Record. He's got much more of a proven record to me than Alex Golish or Tony Elliott. Would you agree?
And that's why, that's why those guys wouldn't even be at the top of my list, because we don't need to take another risk. And
you
those guys,
you can't take another risk.
Just keep Norvell at that point. Norvell at that point.
Exactly. You can't take too much. You can't take, everything's a risk, but there's high, moderate, and low. You can't be a high risk. And I say this again, you kind of disagreed with it. There is this TV contract stuff, which is big money that's coming up in 2 or 3 years. And we got to position ourselves. We paid a lot of money to try to get out to the ACC. So we've got to put on the best party dress and be at the dance so we can have a chance to get the hell out of the ACC, even though we can't beat anybody in the ACC. We've got to have that next coach be that guy that takes us and moves us. That's my thinking. But I would like to see some sensibility in these damn contracts, whoever the guy is. Okay, I think Florida State needs to set a household budget that if make it incentive laden. If you win so many games, you get so much extra. If you go to the ACC championship, you get so much extra. If you win the ACC champ, you get so much extra. If you go to the playoffs, you get so much extra. You can do that. You may be the first university.
You're not going to say it, though. I mean, if
Well,
you're the
that
only one
shit,
offering
you
that type
go
of
get
contract.
someone else.
Who?
I mean, you can't.
Then-
I think there's big money issues at Florida State. There's not an endless bucket of money there. There's no endless bucket of money at Florida State like you might have at Texas A&M, Michigan, Ohio State, Notre Dame. Tallahassee is not. We don't have that big of money. We just don't. And so I think it's concerning. And I think it's going to influence who we get.
You still haven't said who's at the top. Like, Jeff Brom, I think, is making, 6.3, 6.5. I mean, you're gonna have, you either go the Mike Norvell route again and you pay, an up and comer, an assistant, and you take the heaviest risk of all, or you find the money and pay someone at his level, and it's a less risk and more stabilizing force, and you get back to hopefully a program that looks competitive and people want to show up and watch.
Why don't we do this? Let's rule out some people we do not think have a chance of coming here. Nick Saban, he's not going to coach again.
Okay,
He's done.
Okay.
Lane Kiffin, the price tag is way too high, and you're still dealing with Sexton. That's Lane Kiffin would not come here. He's got his choice now, but I don't think Florida State's on his radar. I don't see him coming. A lot of the other established coaches, would they just pick up from their programs to come to Florida State? Probably not. There's a certain thing like who likes, like Jeff Brom, like you were saying, guy who likes to come into a dumpster fire, put it out, and rebuild it to a certain level. All right. And maybe a Jeff Brom may be the guy, but who else would you say, no way are they coming here? I won't say no way for Jimbo Fisher. I don't think the odds are good. I think I'd rather have Jimbo Fisher than some of these other guys.
No, Dion, don't even discuss that.
Dion's not coming here.
I don't think Brian Hartline is going to be coming
Why
here.
not? Why don't you think Brian Hartline?
I think it's too
would not
risky. I think he's a good elite recruiter, but he doesn't have enough coaching experience.
You think that's risky for Florida State or risky for Brian Hartline?
I think it's risky. I don't think he wants to leave. I don't think he wants to head coach, and I think it's risky for Florida State, depending on the costs. And so I think it would take a good amount of money for him to take that leap, and I think it's extremely risky for Florida State to pay that, and for a guy that's never been close to, he doesn't have a lot of coaching experience, especially as a primary OC. I mean, he got, as soon as Chip Kelly was hired there last year, he got demoted. So he's only really been a primary OC for like a year or two.
I agree.
And so I think that's an extremely risky pick if that was going to be a target. So I don't think there's any chance he comes, or we should take that risk on a guy like that. Even though I think he's a great evaluator and a great recruiter. I don't think you can take that.
How about Ed Orgeron? LSU coach Ed. You know the voice, Ed.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think assistant. I think you should absolutely. If you hired
Assistant.
Jimbo, I would take him at. He already said he'd be an assistant. If he
He
thinks,
would. He
yeah.
did say that.
He said that today in an article that he's willing to be an assistant, be a head coach for a program that is going to be competitive. So once again, I think that's something where if you get a discount on a guy like a Jimbo or James Franklin, and you can kind of build this, what Saban used to do is take coaches that are out and looking to rebuild their reputations who are good at defense,
some of these guys,
and,
a lot of these guys we're mentioning, it's really not the money anymore. Except
that's
the
what I'm
younger
saying.
guys. But the older guys, they just want to coach ball. I mean, it's the competitive spirit, it's the camaraderie, it's coaching. And when you have that and you've been doing it your whole life, you don't want to give that shit up. Okay? It's a competitive type of thing. And and it's hard for these guys to give it up. Of course, Ed Orgeron wants to get back in. Of course, Jimbo Fisher, Rich Rodriguez, who was making his name at West Virginia, he got ousted from there. Where the hell did he go? New Mexico or someplace, and then now he's back there. Let me ask you this. I was just thinking, Kenny Dillingham.
No,
what do you think of that?
I don't think you'll be able to get him to leave there. He went back to his alma mater. The only way you get him to leave is you offer him a shit ton of money, and Florida State can't do that.
Really?
So,
you think he's at that level for a shit ton of money at this point?
if you want him, if you really want a guy to leave his alma mater that he's rebuilt, but I don't want him that bad. Like well, you asked the question. I said no. They're not going to get him.
I think he's at Arizona State. That's a stepping stone program, just like USF is a stepping stone program.
But we can't give him the money. He's not going to leave.
SMU is a stepping stone program. These coaches that are in stepping stone programs, they're looking to get that next good deal. He'll probably move on if he's
not going to come to Florida State for a discount. He's not going to come to Florida State.
No, I'm not saying coming to Florida State. He may look for another place.
Yeah, but we're talking about Florida State. We're not talking about another program. So he's not going to come to Florida State for a discount.
All right.
He's out.
All right. Who else do you think is totally off the board? That's out available. That's available or could be available.
John Gruden.
Johnny Gruden.
He's not. Like I said, there could be some weird thing where he's an assistant, but not as a head coach.
He's not going to be an assistant. The guy won a damn Super Bowl. He's not going to come back.
And he's been riding on that coattail for the last 20 years. He has not done anything for the last 20 years coaching.
Well, because the NFL kicked him out. That's why on some emails or something he sued and won on, I think. But I think he's been too much of a clown on social networks and social media. If the viewers, what do you think of John Gruden, viewers? Our family of viewers, what do you think of John Gruden? Would you bring in John Gruden? Just put John yes or John no. John G. John Gruden. He would put butts in seats. Because he's kind of a dynamic type of guy, and he would be interesting.
He did not do well his last 4 years in the NFL. Let's just say that. So no.
You ever see how many guys get fired in the NFL? All the time. They just rotate. It's a rotating door. All right. Matt Rule. How about Matt Rule at Nebraska? You think he's had his fill out there? They're saying he could go to Penn State.
I could see him going there. I mean, he is a good program builder. He understands NIL. I wouldn't see him as a fit at Florida State necessarily. And once again, I don't think you could afford him. I think he's going to be asking for a lot of money, and Penn State's got Big Ten money and Adidas money. So, just purely based on financials, Florida State can't afford him, but I think he would make a good fit at Penn State potentially. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you see any top or visible NFL assistants right now that would take an interest and come in at a discount? Bringing the NFL piece, I like that. Bringing the NFL. I think for players today, not only do you got to pay them now, coming out of high school and in the portal, I get all that, but players want to go to the final and elite level of the NFL. Having some NFL guys on your coaching staff, including a head coach, I think could work as long as they're not Bill Belichick, who's too damn old and has a 25-year-old girlfriend. I mean, is there some top assistants out there that might make a jump down?
I mean, the issue with that is that people, if they've been fighting for being an assistant for so long in the NFL, why would they take a step back to go to college? So I don't think
because they can get a head job quicker. They can get a head job.
Some people have mentioned guys like Byron Leftwich, who's been, he's been with the Bucks, and he's done, he's jumped around. He's been an assistant for a while, and then I think he worked with Colorado maybe. So he's done a lot of stuff there. He offensively, obviously. I wouldn't hire him as a head coach, but he's a name that's floated around as assistant. There's the guy with Washington. no, I can't remember his name. What's his name?
What? Put it out to the viewers. What is he,
Washington's offensive coordinator.
Washington's OC.
Yeah, what's his name? The guy, he coached at Texas Tech, but he's been floated around as someone who could move around. He was a terrible head coach. He doesn't have a good offensive record.
Okay. Did he? Yeah. Wasn't he a head coach in college?
Cliff Kingsbury.
Cliff Kingsbury.
So people have floated him around again for potentially moving, but he's a better assistant than he's a coach. He struggled when he went to USC. I think he's better as an assistant coordinator, offensive coordinator than he is a head coach. So that's a name that you could see.
The ideal coach when I see the guy and he just beat your Washington Commanders, the Detroit Lions, Dan Campbell. That guy. He's not coming to college.
Why?
No, he's not. I'm just saying that's the guy I see as a true motivator of men, of professionals. That type of attitude. Mike Norvell, to me, was too soft. Mike Norvell tried to embrace the new, soft, highly elite kids, roll out the red carpet, have to entertain. I get all that shit. But maybe there's a point he went overboard. He was too nice. And now you see him trying to switch it back. How many years did you see him jump somebody on the sideline like he jumped Edwin Joseph? Never. Now, because of frustration and venting and the pressure is really on him, he's starting to turn. Football coaches, go out and watch some of these youth league, high school games. You'll see coaches jump players all the time. That's what they, in a way expect. They get some of the toughest coaching they've ever had, at some of those levels. But now, because, I don't want the guy to quit or leave or go in a portal. The hell, if a guy wants to leave, get in the damn portal. I'll drive you over there. What I'm saying is, I think we need a tougher brand of football and a tough brand coach to come in here. And who that guy is, I don't know. But it's okay to let somebody know, because Mike Norvell always says, everybody's accountable, including players. Well, you got to let them know that. Maybe you don't call them out on the sideline in front of all the players. You don't do that, but you damn sure take care of it after it's over with, or let the position coach deal with it as well. But it's,
Yeah.
Anybody else? Anybody else on your list?
No, I mean, obviously.
I think they know. I think Florida State, the big boosters in Alford, they already know who they're going after. I think they have a short list. I think some of the guys they want to go after, and they've probably had some favorable signs, are in the top 16 teams in the country and are fighting for playoff spots. And it's not going to be exposed until some of those teams potentially get knocked out. And then you're going to see a lot of movement. You're going to see a lot of movement across the country on some of these schools. But I think they already know who they want. And I think the communications have already been established between the agent and so on. And the coach can stay out of it, but the agents are dealing with it as the intermediaries. Do you believe that?
Yeah, no, I would have believed that. I think
they're not just sitting there with nothing, but they have a money issue to get fixed. But the coordination is also going on, and there's the secret chamber of personalities, the big boosters that are going through this. It's just like at the University of Florida with Napier. They said that they don't even have a permanent university president, and what they call the Bull Gators, who are going to be the big financial backers, they don't want their AD picking the next guy. They want to pick. They got a hell of a situation as well.
Yeah. I mean, Florida's they got a lot of things to figure out too. and somewhat similar to Florida State. 'Cause I mean, yeah, but their buyout's a lot less than ours. But it's gonna be interesting there. The only final name I'll throw out there that I've looked at that would be at somewhat at the top of my list, but I know people feel differently about him, and he does make a lot of money, is Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri. He's built that program back pretty solidly, and now people say, well, who's he beat and da da da. But that's a name where that's a guy
he's in
that,
the SEC.
yeah,
He's
he
in
went
the
from
SEC.
Appalachian State, went to Missouri,
Yeah.
and built them from a program nobody talked about to for the last 3 years they've been a 10-win plus team, and competing in the SEC pretty consistently. Now, like I said, they're not an elite program. It's still Missouri, but it's Missouri. You're talking about them. You see them on TV now, and that's to say, if he was in a better position and had all the resources like Mike Norvell does in the state of Florida, could he could he do the same thing in Florida State? Could he 9 wins a year? Could he get the elite talent? Could we have all the resources? Could he take it to the next level? Program builder, an evaluator. That's what we're looking for. Now he makes $9 million a year, so it's a riskier pick, but that's a guy that would be at the top of my list if you're looking to, and that's a guy I think you could move. He's not.
Why would he leave the
SEC?
SEC? Why would he leave the SEC to come to the ACC?
Because Missouri's not a big brand. Missouri's not a big brand, and Missouri's, in my opinion, I don't think they're going all in on football.
It's a stepping stone program.
I don't think they're going all in on football, and I think you could sell to him brand new facilities. Once again, they have to be able to show that they're going to give him the resources to take and compete for the playoffs and raise his profile and be able to say you're going to be able to make the playoffs because of this is what we can show to you. It's a battle of resources, and say you may be in the SEC, but if you're in the SEC in the bottom third of resources, it doesn't matter. You're just going to you may win 9 games, but you'll always be fifth in the SEC because you can't beat Alabama and Georgia because you're 20 million behind them in NIL.
Yeah. It might be an easier conference, the ACC, to win, which obviously Norvell can't do because he's lost how many in a row? In the last 15 of 20 games, 9 straight ACC. He's lost 8 straight games away from home. It's just that experiment is over. And anybody who's saying on media, a lot of media guys, because they got to fill a lot of hours when they're paying their bills that way, they're saying, oh well, Norvell could be no, he's not coming back. He may finish out the year, but to bring him back will send a signal that you really don't care about your program. So somehow they got to go find a big bag of money to make this work. It's a very, very tough situation. It's going to be a lot of bones to rattle. And do you think Alford gets caught up in this to the point they would try to run him off?
Either that
or they'll take away his power. The boosters would take more of his power away.
Either that, or maybe he's already looked at other roles. I don't know. I mean, like I said, he's made a lot of financial decisions that put them in a financially precarious position. Some of those decisions I think are good. I think football only facilities are good because it helps for recruitment, retention, and stuff like that. Now, renovations to the stadium, those are riskier bets. 8-year extensions after 2 years with huge buyouts.
That was a big mistake. He'll admit to that someday. Someday he'll admit to that.
But he's invested a lot of money, which now puts them in a very tough financial position to move forward. So he's accountable for that, and the president and everyone around him will have to determine, how do we move forward? And it's outside of football. You have to look at everything. But Florida State football is the main revenue driver program, and if it's not generating revenue, and it's due to the underperformance of the program and the person that he hired, and and the person he gave an 8-year extension to, a lot of that does fall on him. And if it's not, and
he has to be held accountable too.
Yeah. If the stadium he renovated isn't filling up because of that, that's on him. Like, a lot of things fall on him. So if I was him, I'd be looking at every option I could to Yeah, I would be stressed out. That's not to say he's probably couldn't find another job, but they're in a tough position financially. That's not to say they can't find the money. They don't have the money. I'm not saying that, but there's a lot of money out there investing in a lot of different things right now. So yeah,
Let me
it's
let me let me talk a minute about Mike Norvell's press conference today. Uh, his weekly normal press conference. Again, Mike. You could tell is under a lot of pressure. He's much more hesitant in his speech than normally, which is atrocious. I think some of it. And I've been thinking about this. I think Mike's personality and his interpersonal communication skills are a detriment to his recruiting as well. I really do. I think Mike's a good guy. I think you say he's a good guy, but he's a bad football coach at this level, and at this particular situation. Mike may come back and do something very well in Power Four. Who the hell knows? But at the press conference today, he was, like me. He's like, he can't come up with the right words. And I think if he does that in recruits' homes going down the rest of the way here, it's going to be a big negative for Florida State. Now, there hasn't been, that I'm aware of, seen any major defections, decommitments from the high school recruiting ranks at this point. But I do expect, I would be shocked if 25%, if not at least 25% of the recruits decommit, because here's where we're at, right? You got other recruiters after these guys. They're going to say Florida State is unstable at this point. You don't know if Mike Norvell is going to be there or not when you come on board. You don't know who the next head coach is. You don't know who your position coach would be. You're going into a desperate situation. So unless you're a legacy player or you really love Florida State and you grew up with Florida State and you only want to play at Florida State, I think you're going to lose some guys. I think you're going to lose some of the best, probably some of the top guys you have on your list. I think it's going to be a difficult situation in that. And now let me say this. It's been coming out across media as well. The early signing period is like the second week in December. But if you're still in the hunt for playoffs or the national championship, I think you get some extra time or some shit. I don't even know why they have it in the second week of December. But the early signing period, and somebody said 80 to 90% of the kids will sign during that period. There's another period in January or February, late signing. How do we roll into the final game, University of Florida? Who the hell knows who will win that game? Who cares? How do we roll in there not having our coaching situation somewhat stabilized and expect kids to sign on? Thoughts on that?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I think you're gonna have whoever the next coach is, if they're not hired early, it's gonna have a disaster portal, or it's gonna have a disaster class, and it's gonna be the first year class is gonna be very heavily transfer,
and they're gonna have to be portaled again.
Yeah. I mean, that's how it is. That's just how it is. I mean, that's how these roll. And I mean, Florida State's still sending offer letters out. Some went out today.
Oh, of course.
But it's I mean, it's going to be a disaster.
Well, these coaches have a recruitment commitment in their contract. They're performing their job, and if they're professional, they should.
90% of this class will not be committed here at the end of the year.
90%, you think? That's high.
90% of the quality players will not be committed.
Yeah, you're talking any 4 stars, probably won't have any 5 stars.
But the thing with that is that if a coach leaves, that opens those players who are committed to that coach could, if before the commitment time period in December, they could move over with that coach. So if you get a high profile coach, you could see some of those recruits move with that coach to Florida State. So there could be some crossover with new recruits from one class committed to a school going to that, with staying with that coach to come to Florida State, and vice versa. So sometimes it can cancel each other out to some degree. But yeah, I mean, this transition period is going to hurt. But if you make the right hire, now if you hire someone like Jimbo Fisher, who isn't coaching right now, then obviously he's going to bring nobody new. But you could hire him faster and earlier, and he could come in potentially. And I don't even know how that transition would work, but maybe get in earlier and try to retain people. James Franklin, he has connections. He could potentially start taking some of those connections and bringing people in from the class as well. So, and then an active coach, if he resigns in November, potentially, like I said, could take those kids from his school and retain those kids and bring them from X school back to Florida State, and other kids who are committed to Florida State could move on. So it gets interesting. I just think it's going to be a lot of chaos. Florida State will be lucky to have a top 30 class, I believe, at the end of the year. And then it's tough for a first year coach. Have to be heavily portal, which is why you'll want a coach that knows how to evaluate talent and develop the right way. You don't want to go heavy portal, but in this day and age, you have to be able to, especially first year classes, and then build your pipeline from there. But a lot of these coaches, the elite coaches, know how to evaluate talent the right way. I think that's something Mike Norvell has struggled with, especially in the portal, consistently.
Well, I think they're really looking at a lot of strategies, the behind the scenes right now, even behind Mike Norvell's back. He's obviously not involved in these discussions. The press conference I was talking about today was pretty generic for the most part, but what came out, he says he believes in these players. He believes in the coaches strongly. He believes no one has quit on this team. He believes, that we need to get better. He also said we've been in close games. We haven't won those games because we made some crucial errors, but he believes these players have the capability to win games down the stretch. And he tried to keep it positive. I thought the questions from the press were average to soft. They didn't really challenge him on anything. There's rarely any follow-up questions. In fact, one leading media presser there, he apologized in advance of his question, asking Norvell a question. He goes, "I apologize before I ask you this question." Even Norvell noted that. He goes, "You're apologizing before you ask a question?" That you're a presser. You're there to ask professional questions. Ask your damn question. All right. Let the coach answer it. Follow up if needed. Okay. You don't have to apologize. And so that I think there's too much softness around this program, including in the press room, including the SID. The whole thing needs to be like burned down and restarted. The car needs to be rebuilt and restarted. Unfortunately, that's going to bring a lot of angst. It's going to bring a lot of disappointment. It's going to bring a lot to talk about, but it could be painful depending on how this plays out. We're playing some opponents, Clemson and Florida, at least, that, we'd like to win those games, even though they suck as well this year. They've got big problems, but we want to go in there and be competitive, but you can be competitive and lose. So there's more losing going to take place here. But if Mike Norvell wins out, people have been asking, do you think they would keep him through 2026 because of the money issues and retain the staff and push forward? I think that would be against odds for that to happen. I think they've already made the decision to move on. They're just trying to figure out the best way to do it.
Yep. All right, I think that's going to do it. Like I said, this will be an ongoing thing as teams start to make decisions on who they're going forward with. Obviously, Florida has moved
I
on,
got
and they
one more
are
thing when you're done.
targeting their list of candidates. And so whoever they nail down will obviously, I believe, accelerate the timeline for Florida State. Because as soon as they hone in on their person, sign that person, they'll be right back on the recruiting trail, and they'll be going after Florida State's recruits. So I think that will very much accelerate who Florida State goes after, and that may, move up the November timeline, especially if Florida State gets blown out by Wake Forest, which is very much a probability because it happened last year.
Blown out?
We got blown out last year. What are you talking about?
No, well,
You're acting like this is a surprise.
Oh my God! If that happens on our home field, the boos of the few people that will be there. There'll be people there. There'll be people there. I don't even know the time of the game. What is it? A noon game? We'll have our shows next week on that.
7:30.
Oh, it's a 7:30 night game. Well, it's entertaining. You can go on TickPick. We're not sponsored by TickPick. I saw tickets $5, $12, $10 in good seats. Good seats. So get the whole family in for $30, right? Take the kids. This is your opportunity to see Florida State at night in what should be a competitive football game. And if Florida State gets blown out, they could fire Mike the next day. They really could. I think the review would be over, because if they are not competitive the rest of the way, I think he could lose his job any day. He's on a thin piece of ice at this point. But it's a great time for the remaining games at home. I think Virginia Tech's at home, right? To go out and see a game and take the family and not have to break your damn budget in half. So
sorry, we didn't play them last year, but this year they did just beat Oregon State 39-14, and they beat Tech. So they're 4-2 right now. There's a good chance they could beat the hell out of us. So it's gonna be an interesting watch.
I've got one
last.
Let's
wrap it up.
Go ahead. I've
Let's
got one last lighter moment, and I thought it was really good, and I would encourage everybody to get out to this event. And this is Sunday, I believe. Sunday in the Tucker Center. Luke Lux, who's obviously the FSU basketball coach, new basketball coach. He's an enthusiastic guy. I hope to hell he has an encouraging first season. But next to him, you know who that man is? Charlie Ward. Charlie Ward, Heisman Trophy winner, national title winner, multiple ACC championships. Charlie Ward is the head coach at Florida A&M University. These two guys said when they got hired, let's get a game together, an exhibition game, and bring it into the Tucker Center. And in fact, during the interview part, they both said, let's also try to get it over on Florida A&M's campus some time ago. And Charlie Ward, he obviously 35 years ago, Charlie Ward was playing not only football at a high level, but also basketball at a high level. And he saluted his past coaches, Bobby Bowden and Pat Kennedy, who was a longtime basketball coach for a long time, for his development. And of course, Charlie Ward played in the NBA. Luke Lux had a short NBA, but coached in the NBA as an assistant. Two super fine gentlemen who conducted themselves so professionally in this conference, and they want to try to get that thing sold out at the Tucker Center. Well, I hope they get a lot of people out there. It's going to be a good tune-up, and they both said, this is great. It's an exhibition. It's not going to count against anybody's record, but it's great for the kids, it's great for the fans, and it's great for Tallahassee itself. And they were light and joking around. It was just a good feeling in the dumpster fire that we have on our other the big sport, football. So
yeah, that's a good way to end it. So yeah, stick with us as we'll obviously be monitoring the situations as these evolve across college football for all these job openings, and especially as they affect Florida State. And obviously the college basketball season is coming, and I think that will be more exciting with a new coach and new style of offense and the more probably emphasis on the offense this year. So yeah, we'll keep you updated as those results come out and as that season tips off here in October. So yeah, stick with us. Yeah, we'll have all the latest and greatest, but no game this weekend, so no post game recap. But if anything breaks, we'll do a show around it. So we appreciate you guys being here. Thank you for liking, subscribing, and
Oh man,
giving
we appreciate
comments,
you
we
guys.
appreciate it.
We really appreciate you guys, your support, and it's just wonderful having you on. And like I say, sometimes we pop on individually too if there's something going on. We got something to say, and so we appreciate you guys so much.
Yep. Thank you all for popping on. Have a great Wednesday night. Have a great rest of your week, and we will see you all soon. And as always, go Noles. Go Noles. Have a great week, y'all.
Seminole sideline 365. Feel the roar, we're coming alive. Garnet and gold in the battle we thrive. This is our house where legends arrive. Every yard we take.